Today at 5, more support against oil and gas drilling within Lethbridge city limits. Plus, a national TV icon is the keynote speaker at a Lethbridge conference. And the Catholic School Division gives the go-ahead for HPV vaccinations in its schools.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. Every day, thousands of students in our province make their way to and from school safely. Unfortunately, that didn't happen today, and it's left a community near Edmonton in mourning. A 6-year-old boy was crossing the street on his way to school when he was hit by a school bus. His injury so bad he died at the scene. It happened in St. Albert, just west of Edmonton. The boy was with other classmates in a marked crosswalk at the time when the bus hit him.
This accident is an immense loss to all who knew the victim and will have a profound effect on the school. Our heartfelt condolences are extended to the family, friends, and classmates of this child.
There were also students on board the school bus at the time. The school district brought in critical response teams to support the family and students at the school. Meanwhile, a teenage boy was also hit by a vehicle, this one happening in Medicine Hat. The boy, reported to be 13 or 14 years old, was crossing the street near Notre Dame Academy when he was hit by a Ford Escape this morning. The victim was taken to Medicine Hat Regional Hospital with minor injuries. The incident is still under investigation, and police are looking to speak with anyone who may have witnessed it. Southern Alberta school districts have been working hard on initiatives to get their students to and from school safely. Last year, Palliser Regional Schools put sheriffs on their school buses to try and put the brakes on drivers who were passing stopped buses despite the red flashing lights. And now this year, they've added internal and external video cameras on some of the buses so they can track down drivers who don't stop for buses that are loading or unloading children. Those buses will be shuffled through various routes, but school officials say they'll also be used to target areas where bus drivers notice a high number of incidents. And speaking of getting behind the wheel, driving school isn't just for teenagers anymore. Many driving schools now offer lessons for seniors, and sometimes the only way to keep driving is to pass a road test.
How often would you check those mirrors, Stan?
Pretty much every time you get in the car.
Very good. And then when we're driving, we're going to check.
Stan Waterman from Calgary just turned 75. Here in Alberta, he needs a doctor's note to confirm he's still able to drive. He got that, but he chose to take driving lessons. There's a growing number of seniors taking driving lessons so they can pass a road test and keep their license.
The road test would be if their doctor required them to do a road test because they're concerned about their health, they could be called in to do a road test. It could also happen based on their driving record if they've had a bad driving record.
I guess the key thing for seniors is losing their independence, and not being able to drive is a major issue for a lot of drivers.
About 75% of Canadians over the age of 65 still have a driver's license, and most are still good drivers. However, the older a person is, the more likely they are to get into an accident, and the more likely themselves are to get hurt, since they are often in frailer health. And a Cranbrook man convicted of killing 39-year-old Tammy Lee Ellis back in 2007 may have his new trial move somewhere else. Cheyenne Learn's lawyer is applying to the courts for a change of venue. Learn was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 16 years for the second-degree murder of Ellis. She was a friend of Learn's estranged girlfriend, but a new trial was ordered for Learn in May of this year. The Court of Appeal found the judge in the case made a mistake when he gave the jury instructions before deliberations. The case is back in Cranbrook Supreme Court on October the 21st to fix a date for the change of venue application. Bad weekend, Dory. Temperatures hovering around average, lots of sun, but also a fair bit of wind.
Yeah, and it's the wind that's keeping us dry, Jackie. Areas to the west of us in BC lose the wind, get the showers from a low-pressure center that's moving inland from the coastal areas. So I guess you kind of have to balance whether you want sunshine and wind or calmer conditions and rain showers. We've had a fair amount of rain here, so we're nice and moist. Our ground level water is doing great as far as the moisture levels go. So yeah, I think we'll probably take the wind and the sunshine on this side of the mountains. More details in a couple of minutes.
All right, thank you, Dory. He's a voice and a face that's recognized across our nation. Today, Canada's longest-running national news anchor paid a visit to Lethbridge.
The important thing is that we keep chipping away at the stigma that has been so strong against mental illness. I mean, 50 years ago, mentally ill people were not welcome anywhere, that we used to lock them away because they made us uncomfortable. Now, through medication, they can be out among us, and that creates problems for some people, but the fact is, they're human beings. They deserve to be treated with respect the way everybody else does.
Instead of on the air, Lloyd Robertson was on the podium this morning at Lethbridge Lodge. And that's our own Dory Rossiter, who is presenting Robertson with memento of his visit to southern Alberta. Robertson's broadcast career has spanned decades, reporting on historic events from the moon landing to Princess Diana's death. But he says what's most surprising is how many people raise questions about his mother's battle with mental illness, something he touches on in his autobiography, The Kind of Life That It's Been. Now, we also are learning about neuroscience advancements at the University of Lethbridge today. They're getting out of the lab and getting into the open field for scientists to test how well people can navigate and recall where they're going. They're using eye-tracking cameras, GPS, and a camera-equipped quadcopter to test navigation and memory recall. Some of these same kinds of tests have been done on rats, but the new technology actually allows people to gather information from humans. Becoming lost and disoriented is often one of the first complaints made by dementia patients. So researchers are looking for links between navigational skills and memory loss.
We're actually tracking their eye movements so that we can see what they're looking at and what they're paying attention to, and we can use that to infer what it is that is important for being able to solve spatial tasks. Same parts of the brain that you use to solve spatial tasks are really important for certain types of memory. So when we look at these spatial abilities, we can infer things about the memory function in that individual so that when they start to break down in situations like dementia and Alzheimer's disease, we can describe where the problems are and what's happening with those people.
Researchers are still looking for volunteers to help with their studies. They need boys and girls from ages 7 to 9, men and women from ages 20 to 40. If you're interested in taking part, you can email Aaron Zaleski or check in on the link-in board on the notice board at the U of L website. Today was supposed to be the deadline the province gave itself to release results of a government investigation of mice biting of a dementia patient's face at a Lethbridge care facility. But now we've learned the health minister has yet to even receive the report. Back on September the 9th, Friends of Medicare claimed that a woman living in the dementia unit of St. Therese Villa had been bitten by mice. The owners, Covenant Health, denies the allegations adamantly. 3 employees, though, have been suspended with pay. Alberta Health will not speculate now on a new timeline. They will only say they want to do a thorough investigation. Health Minister Fred Horne did admit, though, he has no evidence to indicate the allegations are false. Lethbridge's Catholic School Division will now allow controversial HPV vaccinations to take place in its schools. The Holy Spirit Catholic School Division has decided to allow the human papillomavirus vaccine to be administered in its schools. The Board of Trustees says they have been closely monitoring new research and have been discussing the issue since last November. They point out, though, the decision whether or not a child receives the vaccination is ultimately up to the child's parents. Election campaigning is in full swing, and soon candidates will be taking to the internet in 3 debates being broadcast on the web. The first is a mayoral forum being held Monday, October the 7th at the Lethbridge Herald. The next is Wednesday, October the 9th at 11 a.m. at the Yates Memorial Centre. It's being hosted by the Canadian Home Builders Association of Lethbridge. And the third is later that same day, 7 p.m. at the Public Library, which is being coordinated by the Downtown BRZ. You'll be able to watch the southernalberta.com website or the lethbridgelink.com website or the host organizers' websites to catch the websites and the forums going live. Lethbridge New Democrat leader Brian Mason is urging local MLAs to stand up against oil and gas development within the city of Lethbridge. Mason says oil and gas drilling isn't in the best interest of the community or the environment. He supports council's position, which opposes development within city boundaries. Documents released by the New Democrat show a Calgary company, Golden Key, may want to begin projects in West Lethbridge by March of next year. The city, it's against the developments, but has no legal power to stop them. Mason is challenging Lethbridge PC's MLAs Greg Weddick and Bridget Pasteur to support City Council.
Well, one of the things about Alberta is I learned very quickly is that oil and gas is supreme. And the ERCB is more interested in promoting the development of oil and gas than in protecting property rights or protecting the health of individuals. And that's pretty standard. And that's why I think it's important that the local MLA should take a stand here. And they should stand up for Lethbridge. We're prepared to do it, and they should as well.
A disease that more commonly affects horses in the southern U.S. is now showing up in parts of southern Alberta. About 20 horses have been treated for the disease known as pigeon fever. Horse owners are being advised to watch their animals for symptoms, including large lumps on their chests, belly, or around the face. The Claresholm Veterinary Services has treated a number of horses, and vets say most of the cases have been around Claresholm, Fort Macleod, Lethbridge, and Taber. Pigeon fever is a bacterial infection transmitted by biting flies. The disease causes abscesses to form on the horse's chest muscles. It can also cause fever and stiffness in the joints. Vets aren't sure why it's now surfacing here.
It is transmitted by flies, so it's hard to say if a fly came up from the U.S. in a stock trailer. Claresholm does have the Agriplex, which has quite a few horses coming through for shows and competitions and things like that. So not sure if that's why we're seeing it more in this area or if it could be related to our climate and the large number of flies that we had in this area this year.
School kids across southern Alberta are continuing to raise awareness for cancer while honoring the memory of a legend. Fleetwood Bond Elementary School held their annual Terry Fox run this morning. Something a little different, though. During the run, 8 students shaved or cut their hair in support of Locks of Love. They also held a run at the school field. And Kate Andrews High School also held a Terry Fox run, and it did it with a splash of color. They called it the Color Me Rad Run. Firefighters, students, and staff made up batches of cornstarch and food coloring and hurled it at runners as they circled the track. It was modeled after the Festival of Color in India. The goal was to support the Terry Fox Foundation and raise money for cancer research. Time now for a look at how the markets wrapped up the week, and Dory's got your weekend forecast when we come back.